Hi gang, this is Luke with HansonsCoachingServices.com, and I wanted to today just address a question I've been getting a fair amount. I've gotten it quite a bit of times throughout the years of the Hansons Marathon Method being available, but a very good question. I had never really addressed it in the book simply because it was one of the things we missed. But it's a good time to reach it, and I think right now, as I'm talking now, it's towards the end of the fall marathon season, so people will be taking a little bit of time off and then starting up with a new program. So the question I'm referring to is, should I reduce my mileage at the beginning of the program? And essentially, like if you're in the beginner program or the advanced program, you're starting off, 20 miles a week, 15 miles a week maybe. And so a lot of times people will already be past that. They've already been running that amount of mileage. And so they want to know, should I cut back to what the schedule is saying, or should I start, or should I keep on where I'm at and just let the mileage catch up to me as the program advances? So anybody who knows me knows that my standard response is going to be, it depends. And it really does. It depends on the situation. So I have a list of things where you should reduce, and then a couple situations where you should just keep on trucking with your current mileage. So when you should reduce back, so if you've looked at the plan in the entirety and you realize it's going to be the hardest training you've ever followed, this can be a combination of the weekly mileage, the workouts, the workout volume. So just in general, if you've looked at the program and you're like, wow, this is going to be pretty intense for me, but you're already running a little bit more than what the schedule asks for, I would say cut back, because you're already making this. The schedule's already going to be hard, right? You don't need to make it harder than what it already is. If you've been running more than 2 to 3 weeks, where the mileage you're at now, and you're already at 85% of what the weekly mileage is going to peak at, that's another reason I would just cut back. Again, the schedule itself is 18 weeks from start to end, and if you make it a 22, 23, 24 week schedule, you're really looking at making it too hard, right? So if you've followed anybody on our Facebook groups or whatever the case is, a lot of times you're going to hear, yeah, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. So you don't want to make it harder than what I've already made it for you, right? So if you're in that boat, take a step back. Another reason is if you've never taken significant time off from your last race. So a lot of people right now say they've run Chicago or Marine Corps, and they just jump right back into it. So I have a couple people right now where they signed up for coaching with me. They ran their marathon last week, did a really good job, but they'd already signed up for a marathon in December before they came on with me as a coach. So with these folks, like I said, okay, you can run the marathon, but after this marathon, you have to take a significant amount of downtime and not do anything serious for several weeks. So you run into that problem where people just go marathon to marathon to marathon without really taking time off. But if you're looking at it from a performance standpoint, and it's going to be a tough schedule for you already, I would say scale back. The last reason I have is if you have a nick or trouble spot, or you're actually injured, right? So you don't want to start a program already banged up, right? You want to be as healthy as you possibly can be. So if that means taking some mileage out of your schedule right now before you really get into the training program. So like with the beginner program, the first few weeks are pretty laid back. If you're in the advanced program, you have a week or so relatively easy and then jump right into workouts. So you don't want to be in a situation where you're already banged up and then I'm going to ask you to train really hard, right? So you want to scale back, get healthy, and then start the program. So if that means, say in the beginner program, using their first 4 weeks as a way to scale back your training and get healthy, then I would recommend doing that. So if any combination of those, so just one of those things would be a reason enough for me to scale back your mileage and say, just make sure you're fresh, make sure you're ready to get going into a really hard training plan. So, because I know a lot of you are so worried about losing fitness, but if you've read the book, then you've read the taper. And even in a taper, I talk about if you take 2 weeks completely off, you're only going to lose about 5% of your fitness. So all I'm asking you to do is scale back your training. You're only going to lose a tiny little bit, and you're still running. It's really more about maintaining your current fitness at that point. But I just don't want to. My biggest concern is turning that 18-week schedule into something that's 20, 22, 24 weeks long when you don't need it. What you're gonna do is you're gonna get fit, 4, 6, 8 weeks before you race, and then it's awfully hard to maintain that fitness for that long amount of time. Chances are you're gonna get overcooked, you're gonna get hurt, you're gonna get stale, injured, sick. One of those things is gonna happen, and you're not gonna be ready for race day. So we don't want to get too fit too soon. And I have a blog post on that on hansonscoachingservices.com as well, getting too fit too fast, and I'll provide a link in the notes here. So that's when I would scale back. On the other hand, there are a couple reasons why you should just keep on trucking. So I would say the first one, if you are currently injury free, but you've come off a long layup, something like 4 weeks of no running, or just cross training, or something like that, a serious injury, a lot of times like a stress fracture or something like that. You've come back, you've just started running. The big issue here is that you've already had a lot of time off, and you really want to make sure that you're going into a long training plan healthy and fit, right? So kind of the opposite of what we just talked about. You might not have enough fitness built up, so we need to just keep building that fitness to make sure you're ready to start that training program. Your issue is not going to be being too fit. It's going to be, am I fit enough to start this training plan? So if that's the case, then I would just say keep running the mileage that you're doing. Let the training plan reach you later on, and it's not going to take long. It'll take a few weeks, and you should be pretty even. The other thing here is currently not doing any SOS days, something of structure days. To me, the mileage is secondary to intensity, right? So what I mean is that usually the mileage is fine, but the intensity is low. Like if the mileage is high and the intensity is high, then you get into the problem where you might be overcooked a little too soon. But it's usually higher intensity for extended periods of time that really overcook a runner. If you're running but you're just keeping it easy, then I don't necessarily see a problem later on in the schedule. The other thing here is if your mileage is 40 to 60% of what your peak mileage will be. So let's say the beginner plan, you're going to be between 50 and 60 miles at peak, and you're running 20, 25 miles a week of no workouts, then I would say that's fine. Just keep running what you're running, and everything will work out towards the once workouts start, things will kind of manage themselves into a good ratio. So you don't necessarily need to worry about scaling back the mileage. So, but those are the three situations where I would say it's fine to continue on with running. But at the end of the day, you just don't want to put yourself in a position where you'll be regretting your decision 6 weeks out from your marathon. And I've seen that so many times where people get really fit, but then they just have too long between the time that they're at their peak fitness and their race. And that's a lot of times due to getting too fit too fast, and you just want to try to avoid that. With beginners and first-time Hansons Marathon Method users, I tend to be more cautious simply because it's going to be a very tough program, and I don't want to make it harder than I'm already making it. And they've never been through cumulative fatigue before, so that makes my job to make sure that they don't overdo it too early in the program and go straight through cumulative fatigue right into overtraining, illness, and injury. And so hopefully these scenarios can help you guide that decision what you make, whether or not you decide to cut back or keep on trucking at your current mileage. So if you have to take anything away, I want you to recognize that you should start any training plan fresh, recharged, and room to grow in fitness. You shouldn't already be at 98% of your peak fitness. You should be in a position where you have to work a little bit to get back to that peak fitness. And we want you to reach that fitness 4 weeks out, not 8 weeks out. So hopefully you can use that to guide your way and make the most of your training plan. But the biggest thing is don't make it harder than what it needs to be. Don't be afraid to scale back if you need to. And ultimately I want to set you up for success, not being overcooked. And with that, hopefully we'll help you out, and we'll talk to you later. If you are not familiar with Hansons Marathon Method, I would check it out at hansonscoachingservices.com. You can find the book on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, anywhere you find books, ebooks, print books, all that good stuff. So check us out. And if you are a follower of the program, you can find us on our free community at Facebook, Hansons Marathon Method Community. We have over 4,000 runners in there that use the book, and it's a great source of community and question asking. That's actually where I got this question from. So, all right, I'll stop babbling, and I will talk to you later. Have a good week.